Hello and welcome. The Ukrainian forces have achieved a further breakthrough. They are now at Kupiansk, and up to 10,000 troops in Izuym are threatened with encirclement and might actually already be encircled. The latest news is that the Ukrainian offensive that began so forcefully and successfully is achieving further gains. We now have news about first Ukrainian troops at the border of Kupiansk. There are some reports that indicate that the Ukrainians have entered the town, but what is certain is that they have bypassed it further south. Now, this is a map from Rybar, which is several hours old, and Rybar is one of the most pro-Russian Telegram channels, one of the big professional propaganda channels, and even they say that the Ukrainians not only have taken the bridge over the Oskil reservoir at Senkove, but that according to their map, they are about to reach Goronkovatka, where there's the second to last access to Izuym here. The latest news is, and that's coming from Russian sides, I have it somewhat later, is that this is already captured by the Ukrainians. So the Oskil reservoir is the bridge, the dam is the last line of communication for the Russian troops in Izuym, which were numbered up to 10,000 to get. It's their last line of communication, their last way of escape if they don't want to get encircled here. There are some rumors within Twitter, within the pro-Ukrainian Twitter. According to that, there are already Ukrainian troops in this area blocking the road. This is, in my book, though, completely unconfirmed, though at least somewhat theoretically possible. Several days ago, there were Ukrainians already here in Oserne and Stary Karavan on the other side of the Siversky Donetsk. And from here, it's only a mere 35 kilometers as the bird flies to the reservoir. So within 2 days, depending on how weak the Russian forces are here, whether they have withdrawn, whether they have fled, or whether it's more or less just patrols and a blocking force has crossed through, it's well within the realm of possibility that the Ukrainians might have reached at that point, the reservoir, to block the escape for the Russian troops at Izuym, though it is all but confirmed. So we need to be clear here. This is considered to be pro-Ukrainian rumor, not a fact at this point. Still, the advances have been massively, and we can see here how the liberated civilians, after almost 7 months of Russian occupation, react to Ukrainian soldiers coming to their hometowns and liberating them from the Russians. I have three of those videos. Here is another one where you can see the civilians praising, celebrating the Ukrainian forces entering their towns. That's from a town fairly close to Kupiansk, and we can see, I'll just go forward here, we can see somebody even falling to his knees to pray his soldiers, an elderly man. I'll pin all 3 videos. Here's the third one. I'll pin on 3 as the first comment, so you can watch them yourself and we don't have to waste the time. The only interesting part about this video is supposedly, I unfortunately speak neither language, but supposedly those women speak Russian, whereas the soldiers speak Ukrainian. And don't forget, there are all those propaganda channels claiming they're being suppressed. They were oppressed by the Ukrainians and that the Russians are there to liberate them. We all have heard those messages. Here are supposedly some. You can research it yourself. I might be wrong there. As said, I don't speak the languages and they sound similar enough for me to not being able to differentiate between them. But supposedly the women are Russian speaking, the soldiers are Ukrainian speaking. The more news is that the bridge over the Oskil seems to be destroyed. That should be that bridge here in Kupiansk. That's coming from the pro-Russian sources as well. I think this should be a small railway bridge, as we can see here, but it's likely, my assessment would be that the Russians have blown it up, because it doesn't make much sense for the Ukrainians to blow up a bridge in front of them while they are having the momentum. Unless, of course, we would expect them to cross it and encircle the troops in Kupiansk. But it seems like the Russians have blown it up to slow the Ukrainians down, which have advanced massively into their lines, have liberated more territory by now that the Russians have gained in the whole last month. And with the Ukrainian forces heading further south, Izuym, as said, Izuym, by now it should only be a matter of 1 or 2 days until Izuym is freed as well. Unless the Russians decide to take a last stand there, but then all of them would be lost. Now this is, again, this is Raiba. Here, according to that, we see this is actually a more current version where they have already reached the southern bridge, and the Russian sources say this dam over the road along the dam here is the last way for the Russians to escape Izuym and to prevent complete encirclement here. The Russians are now reacting by sending massive reinforcements. We see here light infantry, motorized infantry, some artillery, towed artillery behind them. But no heavy weapons here. We see some BTRs. I'm not completely sure if it's BTR 82 or just BTR 80. Looked to me like BTR 80, but doesn't really matter. So they send in light reinforcements to stop the Ukrainian advance. We have more videos of that going here, but the interesting part is those don't just come from Russia. Those some do. Some, like those here, are being filmed in Luhansk. They are filmed in the Donbas, and that means the Russians are currently weakening their lines in the Donbas to reinforce the Kharkiv front, which should give the Ukrainians some opportunity to exploit that situation, even in Donbas. And there is Ukrainian offensive activity on Strelkov's, one of the former military leaders on the pro-Russian side, an ultra-nationalist Russian former military commander, said the Ukrainians attacked Pisky in the last 24 hours. So they do attack in some places, and whether the Ukrainians still have enough maneuver brigades in this area to actually do a serious push is a whole different story, but this might give the Ukrainians some opportunities, at least for smaller local gains, if the Russians weaken their forces, weaken their front line here. As we have seen over weeks, the Russians barely made any advance, which shows that the balance of power isn't that far off of each other anymore. And if the Russians are weakening their front line here, that might offer some opportunities for the Ukrainians. We have videos now, Russian propaganda, showing one of the biggest transport helicopters in the world, the Mi-26, being used here to ferry in reinforcements. But some smart guys have taken the pictures and combined them, the pictures that were published, and it seems like it was probably filmed somewhere within Russia just to do some show for the media and not even just pure propaganda. Supposedly the routes are like between two of the helicopters. There is not really any transport happening. It's just filming two helicopters somewhere in the fields and claiming this is reinforcements flying towards Ukraine. And at least this is also some indication would be that we see the helicopters here, and where's the traffic? Where are the people jumping out? Where's the loading happening of getting reinforcements of material into the helicopters, etc. So it's obviously a staged event just to make it look good. And here, for instance, for me as a German, having seen this, part of the invasion, part of the counteroffensive by the Ukrainians are, as we can see, some of the Panzerhaubitze 2000, so the modern German self-propelled artillery that was handed over in small numbers to the Ukrainian side. This is another message in the context which would explain some indications why the Russians are so weak. Supposedly, the commander of the 2nd Motorized Rifle Division has left Izuym 2 days before and left his troops behind. So basically, the commander has fled, leaving his troops behind. If that is true, and I don't see any proof yet of this, but if this was true, then that would mean that would be a stark reminder and an obvious sign of the complete lack of discipline, and that should be an indicator for the morale we can expect by the Russian troops if their own commanders run away and abandon them. So whether the Ukrainian offensive stops in time or not is unclear. We have some here, it's from a German news media, as I took this script or these prepared pages for the German video from my German channel as well. According to some Russian officer, Vitaly Ganchev. The Russians are currently evacuating Izium, Kupiansk, and Veliki Barluk. So according to them, they would already evacuate Izium, but that doesn't mean that all of them will actually get out. Actually, those troops here, if the Ukrainians have already reached this, we should be cut off more or less, and we can see whether the Russians manage to evacuate their troops or not. But this is increasingly doubtful that they manage to get out, not only with their personnel, let alone with their material. The Ukrainians are currently achieving a big victory. Their offensive has still full momentum. It seems we seemingly are reaching the point that the strategic initiative might actually have switched to the Ukrainian side, and we will see further offensives by the Ukrainians rather soon. But we should not get ahead of ourselves at this point. Obviously, at some point, the Ukrainian offensives will also reach their culmination points. It's in English. I'm sorry. I'm always switching between the languages. The culmination point should be reached, can be reached at some point, and will be reached at some point. And after that, at least in theory, the Russians can take back the initiative. So while this is a big victory that is in the making here, this is not the decision of the war yet. The Russians might very well come back at a later point, depending their countermeasures they are enacting now to fight this are actually successful. We will see about that, and we will cover this on this channel, obviously, in the future. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you do and haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe and don't forget to hit the bell button so you don't miss future videos. Recommend the videos, please, to your friends and acquaintances in case you enjoyed it. Don't forget the thumbs up and leave a comment for the algorithm if you don't want to comment on the current progress. But while we shouldn't go ahead of ourselves, this is fantastic news for the Ukrainian side, as it both shows the weaknesses and the abilities what the Ukrainians have reached by now, as well as the weaknesses of the Russian side at this point, that apparently they have guarded the whole front here, mostly with Rosgvardia troops, which aren't even meant for frontline duty, but if at all, then more for peacekeeping in the back areas of the front. We will see about that, so I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you soon again with the next situation report on the channel. Thank you and goodbye.